Hey, brother, hear me now. Brother dog, know me, understand.
Welcome to the Sargassum podcast. I'm Robbie Thigpen.
I'm Francisca Elmer.
And I am Mar Fernandez. And we are your hosts for today. And we are going to share with you the latest ideas and concepts about Sargassum and Sargassum beaching events, which have become an international challenge.
Welcome everyone to the Sargassum podcast. Today with Robbie and me is Jenna, who is still kind of our summer intern, but when you hear this, she won't be anymore. And because she has worked with sea turtles, she is our co-host for today. Jenna, you also had the idea to make a survey to ask our listeners what they like about the podcast and what they don't like about the podcast. And we just looked through the survey, and one of the things you guys want from us is to have transcripts. And that's something we can easily do. And by the time this interview comes out, we probably have it already on our website. So go check it out if you want to look at transcripts. One way that's maybe a bit easier to look at the transcripts, because it's just literally text of a spoken conversation, is to go to our YouTube channel and put on the subtitles. And then you can have the transcript exactly when you see people talking as well. And you can click to the different parts of the interview you want to see down in the description, so you can really get the transcripts of the areas you like, and you can get them in a different language. But if you just want the text, we also make that available for you now. So that's one of the things that came out of our survey. Robbie, how are you doing?
Nice. Well, I'm glad to know we're moving in that direction. I'm pretty bizarre, as always. I did not sit through a hurricane yesterday morning, and and I haven't had an earthquake lately, and also I think I'm doing absolutely wonderful, unlike some of our friends and colleagues who are experiencing some of those things and still worried about whether it's even safe to walk in a house right now or not. And so yeah, no, I'm doing wonderful. Me and Buddy went for a walk in the swamp today, and we had a good time, and so yeah, but we've got a couple of people that probably are more interesting than us, and they're from the Netherlands and from Colombia and all. And so I guess Francis is going to introduce them right now.
Yes, our guests are from the Netherlands and Colombia, but they live on Curacao, or used to live on Curacao. Our first guest is Ard Vreugdenhill. He's a storyteller and conservationist and has his own NGO called Connecting. He just finished working in Barbados, and before he has worked for over 5 years for sea turtle conservation in Curacao. And Julieta Castro is our second guest, and she's a volunteer for the sea turtle conservation in Curacao. And with 15 years old, she is our youngest podcast guest we had so far, which is really, really exciting. Welcome to the podcast.
Wow, 15? 15? Wow, I thought you were older than that. How old was the young lady that rode across the Atlantic?
I think she was in her 20s, early 20s or 19. She was young,
oh, really?
too.
Oh, she looked a lot younger than that. Yeah. So anyway, here's a question we got for both of you, and we usually ask this to everybody, or we always ask this to everybody, and we don't want a sciencey answer. And all what we want is want you to share with us what sargassum is to you personally.
Maybe I can start with answering that question. The question is asked me several times already, and it's amazing stuff. I've been walking through Sargassum the last 3 months in Barbados, and it was right there. It was stinky, murky, dirty stuff at the beach. But talking about turtles, it's amazing because the hatchlings, the baby turtles, need this Sargassum seaweed for the first, let's say, 5 up to 10 years of their lives. They cannot grow up without Sargassum. So it's amazing stuff. It's basics for the hatchling turtles, but at the same time, it's a threat for the juvenile turtles, for example, for life in bays like here in Curacao. Once it washes up in these enormous amounts of Sargassum seaweed. But basically, it's amazing fertilizing, feeding stuff, and yeah, well, that's basically what it is to me.
Well, what he said about the murky, disgusting smell thing, it's pretty much all I get from it. I look back and just the smell, I just can't get over the smell. It's, no. But what he said, it's interesting how important it is at a certain age for the turtles, and then it becomes a huge problem. Not only for the turtles, but it's also really good for other species, especially birds. It just becomes, it's just, yeah. Some of them hunt in there, more animals live inside, and it's just, yeah, interesting.
Well, those are fun answers. Thank you very much.
Yes.
I think it reflects so much the balance you need in everything, and how unbalanced things can get. It's a perfect example of something that's really, really hurtful, and once the balance is gone, it can become a threat. And yeah. And
yes.
we are part of that whole system. It's so much caused by how we dealt with this world, and how we use the resources in this world. And but I think also the solution is ours. We have responsibility, but also have opportunities and options in finding solutions.
Very well said. I couldn't say it any better. Earlier this year, before the Sargassum season started, we talked to Javier Diaz, who is also from Curacao, and he told us a bit of where in Curacao Sargassum normally accumulates, and that it accumulates in the bocas. And I want to know from you guys a little update on how was the 2021 Sargassum season in Curacao?
We did have some, again, not as bad, not as alarming. We did keep up checking everything, how much came, how much went out, because it's just comes in, goes out, of course. And it was good, it wasn't alarming.
Wow. So you're probably one of the few places where 2020 was a big year and 2021 wasn't. Well, most other places tell us the opposite story.
Exactly. That's my experience too. Well, I was like Julieta already said, I was off island. I experienced a situation in Barbados, and I saw the enormous influx from let's say the Atlantic side towards the island. And that made really clear to me that we're talking about a real issue, and maybe this year here on Curacao did not represent in the real way how things are developing at the moment. I think we have to be aware of what's going to come in the future, because we were lucky here on Curacao last year. That is not the standard situation. We have to realize, and exactly what you said, based on reports from other islands and other parts in the world, that this issue is a real issue, not only for a specific season, but it's increasing.
What role does sea turtle conservation Curacao play in sargassum management in Curacao?
Well, first of all, I think sargassum management is a responsibility of government. And it can be executed by NGOs, by governmental organizations, but I think we have to realize that solving this issue is something that has to be done on a larger scale. NGOs can be involved in finding solutions, but governments are basically responsible to develop a management program on this. Unfortunately, there is still no real management on this issue on Curacao. So what happened last year, for example, was more like damage control. And what we noticed now, 1 year after, is that still we did not learn from the lessons we got last year. I'm sure this is not only the case on Curacao, it's a general issue. We humans are absolutely not willing to learn from things that happened in the past, and we have to realize that things are going to repeat. So basically the situation is still the same, that there are still no long-term solutions on this. We were lucky, like we said before, that the situation of this year was way better than it was the year before, but a real serious program on managing these issues has to be developed by local government, and of course supported by NGOs and others who also play a role in all this. But without the guidance, without legislation, for example, it remains damage control, and that's not going to be enough.
Yeah, well, I always say that the prevention is cheaper than the cure, and prevention is certainly cheaper than damage control. What I want to know about, though, because I think that this, we're always talking about sargassum, but this particular episode is sea turtle themed. How exactly do you rescue sea turtles from sargassum?
That was fun. We in Ascension, where we had the situation, we had to go all the way up there, climb down, get in a surfboard, and just paddle to them. We had different teams. We had safety and just lookouts. Ard and I were the ones in the water. The people that were looking out, they had binoculars. They were just pointing at it, which of course was pretty difficult as well. Just pointing and screaming, just right. It was quite a thing.
And so were these juvenile adults, or what size turtles were these you were rescuing?
Juveniles. Yeah,
Mostly.
Thanks God it were mostly juveniles, because we had to rescue turtles with carapace sizes starting 25 up to 40, 45, 50 centimeters.
Which species were these?
All of them greens. All of them greens. Yeah.
Oh,
the
aren't you glad it wasn't the leatherback?
We never could have helped them right there. The specific problem of this area is that the Sargassum influx was right at the spot with seagrass beds, where these mainly greens are foraging, and that made the problem quite complicated, because we had to take them out of that area, otherwise they should return again, because they know where the food is. But by the influx of the Sargassum seaweed, it was covered with a layer of up to 1.5 meters of Sargassum seaweed. So there was still food at the bottom they were looking for, but it became such a dangerous environment for them. So these green turtles, and like I said, thanks God, mainly juveniles, small juveniles, 25 up to 40, 45 centimeters, not that difficult to catch. But the circumstances were really difficult, because Julieta was like, well, we had to climb down and we had to paddle through the Sargassum seaweed. Well, that's in 2 short sentences.
Yeah.
not what the reality was, because paddling through the Sargassum seaweed is not paddling, but it's like pulling forward or pushing yourself forward, like you're laying on your belly in grass and pulling yourself, and sometimes up to 40 meters to reach a turtle. It was so tough, and once it happened to her that she fell off the board, and then you're completely surrounded by the Sargassum seaweed, and that was mainly the fresher stuff, so not that murky, but it was so difficult to climb again on the board, start again, looking for the turtle, whatever. So she described it in just 2 short sentences, but she did a really great job in rescuing these animals.
Well, just so you'll know, I've mixed paddling and rock climbing before, and it's a lot of fun. But I think y'all are a whole lot. I think you guys are a lot tougher than I am for what you were doing. That was some amazing stuff, and I just salute you for that. The actual physical effort was huge.
It was. And we realized afterwards how tough it was, because we started with a really small team of only 5 members. Because you have to realize it was in the middle of the COVID crisis. We had what was called Hira Toki de Queda, a curfew, and nobody was allowed to be on the streets. So we finally got permission for only 5 people to start rescuing. So these first days, the first week, were really, really tough. And we realized afterwards, when we started instructing other people and put them on the board too, and train them to rescue turtles and do the rescues, of course, themselves too. But once others were on the board and we saw them struggling there, we realized what a hell of a job we did in the week before. And it costed us a lot of energy, but based on the adrenaline and the results, because we were able to rescue quite a lot of turtles, you go on and on and on, and you find the energy to start over again the next morning. But afterwards, when the first crisis was done and we added fresh people to the team, we saw them struggling, and that made me extra proud on Juli and what she did in water. It was really a tough job.
Wow. How many turtles in total did you rescue?
At the end, we registered 39 turtles, but a couple of them were already dead. So these were not the rescues, although we put a lot of effort in getting them out of the Sargassum seaweed, because it wasn't clear at all if they already died or not. Sometimes they were laying for half an hour without moving on top of the Sargassum seaweed. We reached them, and then out of the sudden, they started moving. So these were great moments. But 39 turtles in total. I think 31 of them were still alive. 8 or 9 of these 39 turtles were infected with the fibropapillomatosis virus. So they had tumors on the head, in the armpits, whatever. So they needed extra treatment, and a couple of them unfortunately died. But I think we rescued 31 alive.
Over how many days was that?
The first 2-3 weeks were the most intense weeks. And then we continued with a bigger team. We were able to monitor in other ways. But from the very beginning till the end, it took us 3 months to get these turtles back into the water, to have the beach clean, and to be able to stop monitoring that specific area.
Wow.
So these turtles are juvenile foraging green turtles, you said. They're not necessarily hatchlings that were traveling to Curacao. They had actually already been there and they were foraging and then were trapped under this massive Sargassum mat. Okay. And what does it look like when you get them? Are you putting them on top of your board and trying to then paddle away with them? Or what does it look like after you reach the turtle?
Well, the first step was just spotting the turtle. That itself was really hard. Just swimming to it, seeing it, catching it. Of course, they react to your touch, so they just start moving. One thing, they're really strong. They don't seem strong, but they're so strong. They start slapping you, literally. And we had nets with us, so it gets easier for us. We just put them in the nets, put them with us, just holding them, and swim back. We also had a rope tied to the surfboard, so we were just pulled back, because it was really not as easy as it sounds. And it was also the waves, the heat, just the rush, I think it was what what was keeping us going, actually. Pero yeah.
Let me interject something. There's nothing about what none of this sounds easy, and I'll just so you'll know. And nothing. It doesn't sound easy at all. It sounds like a lot of physical effort and a lot of hard work, and all. And I think we're understanding that very clear. And I believe we all have a great appreciation for the amount of effort you put in there. And all. So yeah, I couldn't imagine what it's like paddling through that junk. You know.
That little part Julieta forgot to tell about is how it feels, because yes, he was telling about that it's tough to get there, but the excitement of grabbing a turtle and for example what I said before, they were for half an hour laying on the Sargassum seaweed in the full sun, and it seemed that they were dead already. But then grabbing a turtle and seeing that the turtle is alive, having that turtle alive in the net on your board, being pulled backwards to shore, these are really exciting.
Just the silence, everyone waiting for the person to get to the turtle, then grabbing it, then inspecting, then starts flapping, and just yes, the shouting, and that was amazing. It was great.
Y'all are awesome.
Yeah, so you get the turtle to the shore.
And they have that little claw too.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they have a little claw too that you don't think about, and when they're flapping around like that, they end up scratching you.
Yes.
You know, unintentionally, of course, but you just think, what is that little claw doing there?
Yeah.
And we were lucky with the greens because, hawksbills, for example, had two of these claws, and the juveniles are not that strong, but still really strong. But you forget about all these scratches and scars, and at the end they are like war scars. So you're proud of what you carry on your legs and on your arms. But bringing up a turtle in the net, putting it in a bucket, and then hand over it to the team that's waiting there for investigating them, checking them, and then finally the report from them like, whoa, she's doing well, or he's doing well, and we can take her to this aquarium just to recover for a certain time and put it back again. It's a healthy turtle. Okay, she was trapped and she's not in the best condition, but she's going to make it. Yeah, these signals are amazing to hear from the team.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So once you get the turtle on shore, do you rush it to the sea aquarium? And how long does it stay at the sea aquarium? Do they just stay for a day or for longer?
Well, the ones that we rescued, we would just keep going the most we could. Just grab the most we could find. Again, we had to wake up very early, go at the first hour. We had to be there for as long as we could again. We would go to sea aquarium, they were in rehab, so some of them weren't in the best shape, most of them actually. Some of them were still very strong,
Mm-hmm.
but they stayed there for 2 months and a half, maybe. Yeah, right, about that.
The main problem was that these turtles were at a certain moment strong enough to go back. But as we know about the behavior of sea turtles, they will return to the places where the food is. And they were not aware of the actual situation over there. So we had to wait till the bay was clean again. And at the end, there was no food left because this enormous amount of Sargassum killed almost all the life in the bay. It was not only the seagrass, the algae, but also the shrimp, whatever. There was no life left in the bay. But these turtles for sure keep on trying to get into the bay to find the food because they remembered that was their source of food. So we had to wait till the whole bay was cleaned up, and that took quite long. The release always has to be as soon as possible in whatever situation, in case of injuries, in case of, like we had now, trapped turtles, but the environment has to be safe for them. And that was the problem for us in this specific situation. These turtles were already ready to go back. But if we release them, let's say 4, 5, 6 kilometers away from the place where they were trapped, they will return for sure back to the place where they were trapped and will be trapped again and again and again. So we had to keep on rescuing them. So we had to keep them there in the seaquarium till the environment was clean and safe again.
Wow.
Was there any kind of first aid intervention, like any triaging that you had to do and treatments that needed to be done right away, either MASH unit, in the field or at the aquarium?
Well, based on the experiences in the past, we did a lot of netting sessions, checking turtles, measuring them, and that kind of things. We knew that. Well, we found out that most of these turtles were healthy, strong. They were quite in a good condition, but we split them in two groups. The turtles that were strong enough went to the seaquarium, just to recover and to monitor them. And the other turtles went first to the vet, because there's not much you can do right there in the field. When you see the picture of where we were working, it's like desert. There was that big inlet, and we had to climb 10 meters up, and then it's all rocks, and cactuses, and that's it. So we took them all out of the water. We did the first triage on them, and it was quite easy. The healthy ones could go to the seaquarium, and the other ones went straight to the vet. And like I already told before, 8 or 9 of them went to the vet for further treatment. That was mainly because of the bad condition they were in because of overheating, for example, but combined with the fibropapillomatosis tumors they had. Yeah.
I actually only knew of the fibropapillomas in turtles in Hawaii. I never knew that it happened in the Caribbean. Actually, this is the first time I've heard of that. So
yeah, they have it in
that
Florida.
Definitely knocks them down a lot.
Yeah, Florida has a lot of it too.
Yeah. 3 years ago at the International Sea Turtle Conference in Japan, we brought up this issue because we found out that we had a lot of fibro turtles in Curacao. Well, fibro turtles doesn't sound nice, but to make it a bit easier, turtles infected with the fibropapillomatosis virus. And by then there were 4 huge outbreaks registered worldwide. And we were the 4th one of them. One of them was, like you mentioned, Florida. Hawaii has another one, and there is another one registered in Australia. But I think this is going to be one of the problems that's going to be bigger and bigger in the upcoming time, because it had to do with stressors. And for example, the temperature raise in water inlets, whatever, is one of these stressors for turtles. So you see it more and more popping up. Yeah.
Well, speaking of temperature, with these turtles sitting on top of the Sargassum and just baking in the sun, when you first got to them, did you try to cool them down or anything? Get some water out of the sea, or was the surface water too warm, or anything like that? But you try to lower the temperature.
Yeah, we did. We would put them in crates with water and wet towels over them. So also calm them down.
Did you do Did you do anything immediately when you got to them with the surfboard? Did you just wait till you got in to do anything with them?
No, we really didn't have the chance to. It was just very quick. Get the turtle, put it in the net, go back immediately, put it in the thing, get them up, and go back. And it was just back and forth. So him that was upstairs was the one.
No. Thank you for that. Thank you for all your diligent efforts and all. When you got them back to the aquarium and all, after you checked them out and they were all healthy, what did you feed them?
It was a mix of fish and lettuce mainly, and it was surprising how fast they started eating. of course, there was no food there for them because the aquarium, thanks God, they don't keep turtles there because turtles have to live in the wild, and so it was for them also something new, and yeah, we did things by trial and error, but they reacted really well on the food presented, fish and lettuce, both of them. That also made clear that they were not in the worst condition, but they were mainly at the wrong spot. Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Again, all of that was new for all of us, for the aquarium and for us as well. I don't think we ever had a situation like that.
No.
So it was just thinking and hoping for the best. Again, we had a routine in which rescuing the turtle and just get it back as soon as we could. Of course, we couldn't. And with the food, honestly, I was very worried because, well, you can't really feed wild animals, right? But it was just like a reaction that what else could we do? We have to feed them.
So, sometimes it's
That's
better to
very
be
true.
lucky than smart. And yeah.
That and not only
It's a-
that, there are, you have to act in that situation and do whatever you can, but there are a lot of resources. We are part of the Whitecast network, the Caribbean Sea Turtle Organization, and a lot of our colleagues are ways more experienced, and you can, that's such a blessing of working nowadays. You can write your WhatsApp, and within minutes you get feedback from 4, 5, 6, 8 colleagues trying to help you out and telling about their experiences and best practices. So that makes the opportunities a lot more, because we always said we are not able to rehab turtles. We are way too small. We don't have experience. But once you are in a situation that you have to do so, you'll find out that you're able to do so. And you do whatever you can, but with the support of others, a lot of volunteers at the island, food donations, the experience of the aquarium, feedback from turtle colleagues in the region, we made it.
Well, we appreciate
Yes.
you guys being the sea turtle first responders and search and rescue and stuff.
Yeah, and imagine you had to do this without WhatsApp and had to write letters to people and wait for their response. That would have taken forever. Yeah, you guys already mentioned it a bit that you started this rescue during COVID and you had restrictions on how many people could be in the team. But as I understand, there was also a time where you couldn't go out at all, but there were still turtles already in danger or already having problems. Is that true? And if so, how did that feel, having to stay at home while the turtles needed you?
I had to stay in for a month, and then the Sargassum thing happened, and again, it was for 3 months, and our quarantine didn't last for that long, so it was just for a month.
Yeah. Yes, but yeah, we were already quarantined, so we were used to this situation of being at home, and yeah, it didn't feel like we were trapped because it was clear that we have to do so to keep the situation stable. But once we got the alarming sounds like there are turtles trapped, and these were given by people who were there illegally. Of course, nobody was allowed to be there, but people were there illegally, walking their dogs.
But then we figured it out, and then it was fine, so no worries.
We were really happy they did so. But the first 2 days, it took us 3 days to get the permissions and everything set to be able to go out. It felt, to us it felt like liberation, because finally we could go out, and we were so much more free than many other people at the island. We got these special permissions. But it was really great to be able to go there, and the first days we found mainly dead turtles. So it felt like, well, we are too late, and the damage is already done, and we missed the opportunity to save them. It's now damage control, but by then we noticed that there were so many more turtles trapped, and there was so much more work to do. But at the beginning, we were really disappointed about what we found there. It really felt like, whoa, if we should have been there 3 days before, we could have saved the lives of 5, 6, 7 turtles for sure. But after getting into all these action and rescuing all the other turtles, the feeling changed. But it was quite disappointing to see them there at the beginning, all dead and nothing alive in the Sargassum seaweed. And it felt like really like we were too late.
Julieta, I hear a lot of things. Usually it's silly stuff, but every once in a while I hear some actual news from Europe. And I have a friend who's a cheese smuggler that I get a lot of my data from. And anyway, I heard that you've been on a lot of European television shows, talk shows, chat shows and whatnot, talking about your relationship with the STCC and all that there in Curacao. And could you tell us a little bit about that experience? How's it feel to be a TV star and all?
Oh. Funny, because I never expected anything like that. Not the Sargassum and what followed up. And there are multiples. I really can't name them all anymore. Well, unexpected. It's weird sometimes just getting an email, just, hey, I've heard about you, blah, 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 and all of that. Feels amazing. Getting the opportunity to actually know what's happening, somehow just have a voice there. Be part of the change, because like Ard said, sure, people can talk about it and everything, but we're also doing stuff. So it's just, we're the voice and the action, and just influencing more people. It's great. And also because I'm normally focused towards skits, most of the things that I've been part of are directed to kids. So that's also amazing. I feel so proud of that, and very
awesome.
glad that
That's exciting.
I got to do all of that.
That's very exciting. Let me ask you a kind of follow up on that. And I'm, as you know from our chit chat before the podcast began, I'm pretty monolingual, and I'm not even good at the one language I speak. But how many languages do you speak?
How many languages?
Oh, well, obviamente, Spanish, Dutch, so English, of course, and that's it, right? Just a little bit of French, also.
Okay, excellent. And how about you, Ard? How many languages do you speak?
For me, it's English, Dutch, German, Spanish, and Papiamento. 5 languages.
Wow.
I'm working on my Spanish.
Excellent. I like hanging out with polylingual people. They make me. That's just because I like being around smart people.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. None of my conversations are in one single language, so that's interesting.
Then you could be a Belizean, because if you speak to a Belizean, in one sentence you may hear 3 different languages in one sentence. So maybe you're a Belizean then.
And I like it a lot that Juli is speaking all these languages, and it's really important to reach your audience. But what makes me way more proud is not what she's talking, but what she's doing. Because we need people like Greta Thunberg who preach a lot, but Juli is one of the people who is practicing what a lot of people preach. And I think we need both types of youngsters in this world. It's important to take the stage, but you can never take the stage when you're not experienced. And I think by what Juli did here on Curacao, she experienced a lot of things here that makes it possible for her to reach out and be an example for others.
One more question related to that, and because I would expect that you know, she's un colombiana, and I would expect if she's going to be working in the Caribbean, that she would been in Providencia or over that way in the islands off Nicaragua. But she's on Curacao, which is closer to Venezuela. How did you end up in Curacao?
My mom's work. We just moved in for work. Implicated that we moved here, and actually, it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. I practically live in the ocean. The ocean is one of the most important things for me. That's pretty obvious, I think.
Julie, you said that a lot of work that you did previously was in education or with youth, and so what other things does Sea Turtle Conservation Curacao do? Do you have education events, outreach events? Are there nesting patrols, or do you have nesting turtles there? What other stuff are you doing?
Yes, the nesting monitorings are one of the most active ones right now. I haven't heard anything in the island, but there's a small island right next to us, Curacao, and that's mostly where the turtles go, and that's the most active right now. So we have a team for that. Right now, I really can't. I'm working in school, so it's really not that possible for me. But we do have more people that are busy with it. Just taking care, just walking around the island. It's a really small island. You can just walk around in like 3-4 hours, maybe, but it's just the sun. That's the hardest part. What else? Ard used to do...
Rescues.
Yeah, the rescues. The rescues, yeah. Just hooked turtles and all of that. Really, Ard used to do just in schools, right? Yeah, he would go to schools. Just primary schools mostly, right? Yeah.
Yeah, different types of audience. Yeah. The years I've been working here in Curacao, I was the field coordinator. That meant monitoring, guiding the teams that were monitoring, collecting data of nesting females. But a quite big part of my work was in water. So I called myself often the in-water specialist because of the amount of rescues we had to do here on Curacao. And that was one of the activities. It wasn't only rescues, but also educate others and take people like Julieta into the water, teach her how to hand catch sea turtles, the process of the removals of the hooks, but also the measurements. Last of all, the last activities we did, we had to check the stranded turtles, the dead turtles too. We found in the Ascension Bay. So I did my course in necropsies in the Florida Keys, in Maritime Keys. And of course, we practiced these type of activities too here on Curacao too. So Juli attended these necropsies also. So I always tried to involve people in what I was doing, and Juli was there from the beginning and really serious in what she was doing and willing to support. And she's one of the few here at the island who's able to hand catch green turtles. Yeah.
That is not an easy task. I always had a much easier time catching hawksbills. The green turtles seem to want to escape more than the hawksbills for some reason. That was where I was in the Caribbean, but that's really amazing. It's such that experience, Juli, is just something that is unlike anything else. So that's really amazing that you are doing that. I really also think it's neat how the esophagus of the sea turtle has the little spikes in it. The first time I did a necropsy on a sea turtle, I was really, really impressed with their esophagus.
Yeah.
It wasn't my favorite experience cutting a turtle open. No, I wouldn't like to do that again, honestly. But yeah, it was very interesting.
Tell us a little bit about your NGO there, Ard. and all, and what you're doing and your connectivity. You told us a little bit how you see all these other connections, in some of our initial chit chat. But tell us a little bit more about that, please.
You asked me about what I'm doing actually now. Based on my experience here on Curacao, mainly, I found out how important it is to involve people in what you're doing, because we are repairing things that are damaged by us humans in the past. And in some cases we are able to repair, in some cases we are not longer able to do so, but we are still responsible. And what I noticed, especially last year, is that people are so disconnected. Of course, the COVID made us disconnected because we had to social distance ourselves from others, but we're also disconnected from nature. And I think one of the first things we have to do is get reconnected, because you cannot create respect for the world you're living in if you're not connected with that world. So I started my own NGO, my own project in reconnecting with nature. And I reconnect people first. So, for example, in exchange programs between schools in Europe and the Caribbean, or in Europe and the States, whatever, I try to connect students with each other, working on real case scenarios, actual situations in nature. And it's amazing. Youngsters are absolutely willing to know more about what's going on in nature. And once you trigger them to start experimenting, to start finding solutions on real cases, they are really willing to do so, and they are eager, but you have to offer them the opportunity. And in the educational systems we use nowadays, it's mainly based on not developing your social skills, not getting reconnected with the world around you, but it's about what your marks are on your languages, on maths, on whatever. And in my opinion, that's not really important. You have to take people, youngsters especially, out of the schools and get them in contact with nature again, because once you are connected, you start developing respect, you start to feel also your own responsibility, and people start to act. Yeah,
that's definitely very true. Julieta, you yourself, you're still in school, right? So what are your plans for after you graduate?
I'll let you guess that one. Well, I've always wanted to do with ocean work. I am also a diver. I'm planning on just keep on doing that for as long as I can. I want to travel a lot, but I feel like that's something everybody wants, right? Yeah, I would like to do marine biology, oceanography, actually. One of my main people that pushed me to do so is Sylvia Earle. I don't know, I love her work. I love every single thing she has ever done. It's amazing. Yeah, I don't know. Just stepping up like that would be amazing. Also follow me doing what I love and just willing to do a change, because there I'll learn a lot, of course, and I'll have more basis to actually help out, Mm-hmm. Because I said it in one of the documentaries, it's amazing that I can just help out with turtles, but I would really much like to do more than that. I feel like I can do way more than that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure ocean. You will. Like,
yay, ocean.
Yeah, I'm sure you will do way more than that, especially since thinking about it, if you think about what Sylvia Earle did at your age, you probably already outpaced her in your ocean work. So you still have a lot of years ahead of you to do a lot more, for sure.
I hope so, yeah.
I I said is, being that you speak about 5 languages, maybe you could study sociolinguistics and forget about the marine sciences. What you can do is bring those two things together.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what you could do.
I would also like to do that.
Because I think, like Ard said earlier, the onus is, or he said something like to this effect, the onus is upon us to clearly communicate to the people we're working with. And speaking 5 languages helps.
Definitely.
Excellent. Well, guys, this has been great. I've enjoyed speaking to both of you today, and I think that I'm speaking for Jenna and Francisca as well. And this has been an awesome interview. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be there in the podcast.
Yeah, good luck in the future, both of you, with your NGO and Huli with saving the ocean. I know you can do it. I'm rooting for you.
Thank you so much. That's
Thank you.
Sweet.
Thank you so much for being with us today. And Francisca gets on me all the time. She says, always say this was your favorite interview. And so this is another one of my favorite interviews. And I've thoroughly enjoyed this. You're both a delight to speak with. Thank you very much for being with us tonight.
Thank you too.
So what did you guys think about the interview?
That young woman is amazing. She is really an amazing young woman, and I'm very excited to see what she does in the future, because I know it's going to be big. And what a neat program Ard has as well, getting youth connected with nature and getting people in the water and teaching them how to catch turtles free diving is really a special experience. That's really neat.
Yes, and working on
said.
real world problems with these people, like with the youth, like he's bringing them somewhere and showing them a real world problem that's hard to solve and seeing how they can solve it, which sounds really, really cool and really, really useful, and also rewarding to those young people coming along, for sure. And just all the emotions they talked about, like they talked about what they did, but then they always would emphasize, but you know how we felt once we got the turtle and the adrenaline, and even though we were so tired, we kept going because the feeling you get is just the most amazing feeling in the world. I think that was my favorite part, that they really were able to tell us about that feeling, and you could kind of feel it yourself.
Yeah, you could certainly feel their words and all, and I think that's a very important thing that's missing from a lot of science discussions, is that so much of the language we use are just sterile, and none of that comes through. But I think that feeling coming through in the language and in our, and not just the words we use, but our body language, it's important as scientists and all, because otherwise it's just talk nobody really cares to listen to. But we need to talk and sound like we're real people, we're actual people instead of something else, And no, it's quite refreshing.
Yeah, it's really something that we need to change in science communications, I think, is, like you said, sort of the language that we use.
Everybody, thank you for being with us tonight. And all this was recorded tonight. I think this is the first interview we recorded where it was dark where everybody was at the same time. And I want to thank you for being here. You could have been anywhere on the planet, just like we are, but you chose to be here with us, and we really appreciate that. And we'll see you again next week. And take care.
Thank you for tuning in today and learning with us from our guests. If you want more information about what our guests talk about today, then please check our show notes for links and information in our archives. And don't forget to like and share our podcast with your friends.
If you enjoyed our podcast, please consider supporting us financially by becoming a Patreon. For as little as $1 per month, you can support us and get the exclusive benefit of submitting questions for our interviewees before the interview.
The Sargassum podcast is produced by Marine Conservation Without Borders and is made possible with financial support from Seafields. It is produced by Marcel Van de Kamp, Lauren Blankenship, Cleo Maridakas, Franziska Elmer, and Eloise Lopez, and is hosted by Robbie Thigpan, Franziska Elmer, Mar Fernandez, Florence Menez, Cleo Maridakas, and Paula Diaz.
We will be back next week with another exciting guest. The music of this podcast is from the song Debrief by Drizzle the Roadrunner, an artist from Roatan. Follow him on Spotify or YouTube for more music, but for now, here is the full song Debrief.
Hey, brother, hear me now. Brother, dog. Know me, understand. Now for them no want to see we get nothing. That's why them a pray and always front and star. Now for them no want to see we get nothing. That's why them a pray. Now for them a pray. Them a pray. Them a pray. Me no gain progress. Now for them a pray. Them a pray. Me no reap success. Now for them a pray. Them a pray. Them a pray. Me no gain progress. Now for them a pray. Them a pray. Me no reap success. So me tell them yeah, promises come and me no take that. Only if it come from Jah, I'll accept that. Now for them me put me trust in and give me setback. Yo select that, will and pull up that. Tell some wicked that bad mind me no fear them. Anytime them cheat and chat me no hear them. Me dash a few hard soak for the queer them. Me dash a few hard soak tell them where them. Now for them a pray. Them a pray me no gain progress. Now for them a pray. Them a pray me no reap success. So me tell them yeah. Yes, me know me have a lot of fake friends, but me never woulda thought me woulda have fake family. So me tell them straight, me no trust them. Me no trust you and me no trust him. Fake friend lost bad mind in a real life. Star me no rate that, star me no rate that. But me real for me woulda bust a million shot in a real life. Now for them a pray. Them a pray me no gain progress. Now for them a pray. Them a pray me no reap success. Now for them a pray. Them a pray me no gain progress. Now for them a pray. Them a pray me no reap success. So me tell them yeah. Them a pray me no reap success. Screaming out loud. Me woulda tell them fi go look alike, but them a hate and grudge and creep on mine. Them a move like Judas. Them a move like Judas. Plus, everybody have a life to live. So me give one rascal who a try judge me. Like them chit and chat, so what them want fi say. Cause none of them out there nah feed. Now for them a pray. Them a pray me no gain progress. Now for them a pray. Them a pray me no reap success. Now for them a pray.